If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Wayne Dyer said that once. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, episode 55, Leading with Your Mind, featuring Silke Celia. Hey everybody, it's your host and founder of the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, Scott McCarthy. Welcome one and all to what I like to say the best leadership podcast out there. And you want to know why? Because frankly, this show is all about taking actionable, simple, practical tips, advice, tricks, guidance, whatever you want to call it, and allowing you to basically take them and run with them right away. And that's what makes it effective. So welcome. My name's Scott McCarthy, as I said. And if this is your first time listening to the show, welcome to the Move Forward Leadership Podcast. It's great to have you here. And if it's your 50-odd time, welcome back, because I know there's a lot of you dedicated listeners out there. And I am truly appreciated for all of you, every single one of you. Today's a really different show. We're not going to really be getting into core leadership. We're going to be more focused on yourself today. But before I dive in, I want to take a quick moment and just, talk about the Moving Forward Leadership Mastermind community out there on Facebook. So if you just go to movingforwardleadership.com/mastermind, that's actually going to take you to our Facebook group. And, I invite all the guests there. They're not all there. Not all of them are on Facebook, and that's cool. But I invite all the guests, and you know what? That gives you a chance to actually interact with him. And, well, more importantly, I'll say, interact with myself, because I'm in there posting daily. All right. All kinds of news articles, various leadership articles, asking questions, there for advice, et cetera, et cetera. And, sometimes you even get a sneak preview. For example, those who were in the mastermind quite some time ago got a sneak preview of last week's show with Mark Devine, like months ago. They actually got to see the actual video, raw video of that one. So anyway, all that say, movingforwardleadership.com/mastermind if you want to come and chat leadership. I'm thinking about hosting yet another basically open mic night where I open up a Zoom link and anybody and everybody can come and talk leadership with me. I'm thinking about that. That could be coming in the near future. Okay. But let's talk about today's episode. A little bit different. I brought in Silke Celia. Believe it or not, she came on the show out of Dubai, so she gets the furthest away guest award for sure. But Silke is basically a rapid transformation coach out of Dubai, and she has a master's degree in psychology. She's a Master Practitioner of NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. If you're not tracking what that is, it's definitely interesting stuff. She's a systematic coach, she's a healer, and all kinds of other things. And what we're getting into is basically the neuroscience behind, decision making, how we can speed it up, how we can make better decisions under stress. We talk about the myth of multitasking, because guess what? Multitasking, complete utter myth, okay, folks? You can't do multiple things at once. Sure, you can say, but I walk and talk, Scott. No, but we're talking about actually making conscious decisions, analysis, etc. You can't do multiple things at once. It's just impossible. All right, so just a touch different, however, very much in that whole leadership realm, because if you can't make better decisions, if you can do better decisions under stress, then you are going to be, guess what? A better leader. And I do believe that's why you're here, and that's why I do this show. All right, folks, that is it. I try to keep these intros short, under 5 minutes, and that's it for now. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with Silke Celia, talking all things about mind. Silke, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Scott, to have me here on your podcast.
So occasionally I like to throw out random awards for my podcast for my guests. And tonight you win two, because one, you are the guest who is the furthest away from me ever in Abu Dhabi. And 2, you are the one that I'm staying up the latest to record for. It is now 11:05 p.m. Thursday for me, making it 7:05 Friday for you.
Yes. That's the world now, yeah.
Yeah, we have to love, the world and technology and how small the world is getting compared to, even years before, right? So the first thing I like to do with all my guests is just ask them to give a little bit of background on themselves, who they are, where they come from, and how they got to where they are today. So why don't you start us off with that?
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for staying up so long for this talk. Yeah, and my name is Silke Glaab. You can just say Silk. And I'm a psychologist who helps entrepreneurs, experts, executives to really become more resilient to stress and improve their thinking and decision making, and therefore be really equipped to leave a legacy in their life, in their company, in their family. So that's what I'm all about.
Awesome. And that completely ties into moving forward leadership, because I'm all about making better leaders, and making decisions is what leaders do day in, day out. So that's what we're here to talk about. Now, I've had guests on before in the past that we've talked decision making and decision making skills with, but we haven't really gone into the neuroscience and talking about that before, and NLP and those type of aspects. So for the audience out there who may not understand what neuroscience is, could you give us like a quick overview on what neuroscience actually is for them?
Yeah. So neuroscience is like what the word says, science, and it looks like into the anatomy of the brain and how the brain functions. There are even nowadays devices which can really like see what's going on in the leader's head. And in my section, I look more how we can apply the knowledge we know now from neuroscience into the life or into the company life of a leader. And therefore I find also things of organizational psychology, which already looks at human behavior at the workplace. So also again, what kind of decisions are being made, what kind of thoughts are in the leader's mind, and now combine it also what we know from neuroscience, which makes it more powerful, I would say.
Absolutely. I would think so. So basically we're trying to unlock those unused portions of the brain, because people only use, something like 10% of our brain power or something, maybe even less than that.
Yeah, okay, that's a little bit a myth. It's more what is in our awareness. Yeah, okay. So in fact, our subconscious mind does a lot of things and occupies already a lot of your brain functioning. That's a little bit a myth. It's more to bring it into your awareness, what's happening while you're doing certain things, and why are you doing certain decisions.
Okay, I see. I get it. So can you go into a little bit more detail on how neuroscience and all the practices associated with that would help leaders in their day-to-day lives?
Yeah. Okay, but when we look at decisions, it's a quite complex theme, which is studied by a lot of people, not only in neuroscience, but also in philosophy, even in psychology. And what is actually a decision? Like, for example, you're a manager of a company and you want to introduce a new communication system. So you decided that you want it, so that's a personal decision. Now you have to decide in which department you want to start. That's a social decision you make. Yeah. And then you also have to consider, if I have this new communication system, will there be some positions being redundant? That's again an ethical decision. So you see in decision making, a lot of things are happening. When you go now to the actual decision making, there is a lot of science now that when it comes to decision, emotions are also very crucial in that. So there is this very famous neuroscientist, Antonio Damasio, and he found out that people who had a certain brain damage in which emotions couldn't be felt anymore, they're unable to make decisions. So they were very rational to consider the different options, the pros and cons, but there was no feeling attached to that. And therefore, they were unable to do decisions. So from this, we already know we are not robots. Yeah, so if it comes to decision making, often emotions are actually involved in that. And it's not a bad thing because it gives us a value on certain decisions. But sometimes if your emotions are like you're very stressed, you may not make decisions. Or if you're overconfident, yeah, you want to say something?
Yep. No, it's funny because one of my previous guests on decision making, we were having a debate whether or not emotions could be removed from the decision making process or not. And here you are talking about that exact same thing. So it's just memories of me coming back. His argument was that no, emotions have to be in decision making, whereas for me, I always try to remove emotions out of decision making for a clearer picture. So I'm just you're just reminding me of that time.
Yeah, and it's actually an important thing, yeah, because if it comes to time-limited decisions, it's better to take emotions out of it. Yeah, when it comes to company decisions, you may think you're very experienced in something and you're overconfident, but this will maybe mislead you because you're not considering certain other things.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Agreed.
yeah, to have a more comprehensive thinking, it would be better to be quite rational. And then in the end, to still bring your emotions in, but be aware of it.
No, that kind of makes a bit more sense for sure. So we talked a bit about emotions and decisions and what decisions are, and we talked a bit about neuroscience. How does the way people think, more along the lines of how quickly they think, how does that affect our ability as leaders to make decisions?
Yeah. Normally when it comes to day-to-day decisions, what can I say? If you want to decide, you go into a meeting room and you have to decide which chair to sit on. That's a very fast decision. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, most of the time we have these very fast, automatic, emotional, subconscious decisions. There's quite some study on it with Daniel Kahneman. He brought up these concepts of these two systems, which is first fast thinking. Yeah, that's what we normally 95% of the time we are doing that. And then there's another system we have, and we call it more the rational, the slow thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And you have some effort to really think in this line. So it's logical, it's conscious, and you use it for more complex decision where you have to consider certain things.
So, yeah. Makes sense for sure. Absolutely.
And so in an organization where structures are quite clear, you often have this very fast thinking. Yeah, so structures are there. There are certain procedures to follow, and you do it automatically. And when it comes to forecast, you want to like have a view into the future. At that time, you have to think much more rational, and you have to take an effort to think slow.
Mm-hmm.
And our mind doesn't like that too much.
Yeah.
It consumes actually energy to do so.
Interesting. So, we have these decisions which obviously are ingrained in us. And I guess maybe a takeaway for the audience out there is that if we can, how can I put this? If we can formalize a process that will enable us to make those decisions quicker, is that a fair way to say what you've been saying?
Yeah, it's. I would frame it to make decisions, to make better decisions
Mm-hmm.
In a certain time frame.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's the process we should look at. And you want me to say how you can do that, how to make better decisions in a set time?
Absolutely. That'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. So what you can do is like you have to do really a company decision. And the best thing is that you get feedback from other senior leaders, like you, the leader of the company, the GM, the CEO, but you get views from other department leaders too. So
Mm-hmm.
you give out certain tasks to them to set goals, and you give them individually to each of them, and then they report it back to you. And out of this list, you choose the best goal to set or the best decision. So you get like a social decision,
Mm-hmm.
and you consider different points. And I think that's also something which is quite neglected in a lot of companies. That like decision making, of course, is with the CEO, but to consider really also the leaders of different departments, not in a like group discussion, because then group dynamics are coming in, but independently. You give them that certain task they have to do. They give you the answer in a report, and then you compare and file all the answers together, and then make a rational and emotional decision on it.
Okay, so summary, basically what we're saying is widen the circle for the decision-making process.
Yeah.
Include more people, bring in, obviously more views, analyze them, and then decide on what the best way forward would be.
Yes.
Awesome. Now, obviously, when we're working as leaders, it's stressful. Often, especially for you, you're dealing with obviously large scale companies. I work in a very large organization myself, so stress obviously comes to play. So, how can leaders make better decisions during stressful times?
Yeah, in fact, it's difficult to make the best decision when you're stressed, and so therefore it's very important to get more resilient on any stress levels. So to have a more balanced life,
Mm-hmm.
and don't make the decision when you're at the peak, because at that time we say there's this frontal part of your brain, yeah, where you make more rational decisions. Under stress, there's another part in your brain, we call it the limbic system, which is quite active. Yeah, and it's more survival. I feel not really in control of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have to do is to get really back into control, so that your limbic system resides, because it will overrule your rational thinking. So balance that out, have sleep, have good nutrition, have good activities, and be able to really control your emotional outcome. That is that you even sense if there's an emotion in your body, and you're able to name it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to name it, you're already in control. You're not ruled by your emotion anymore. Because emotions are like energy in motion. And when it comes like to your higher brain, it becomes a feeling. So catch your emotion when you already sense that something is going on, your heartbeat is going up, you feel exhausted. then do something to get hold of it and then make your decision. That's really an important thing.
That makes absolute sense to me, because I often talk about what I refer to as a condor moment when something occurs. So a stressful event occurs, and what I mean by a condor moment is take amount of time to sit and actually relax, to the point of that you would smoke a cigar, essentially saying, take the amount of time it would take to smoke a cigar and relax yourself before actually getting into whatever is causing that stress event. Right. And I think we're kind of talking about the same lines here of, removing the stress and relaxing.
Yeah. And it's this moment of taking the cigarette is that you actually inhale and exhale. That's really the important part. So breathing in a slow and rhythmic way of breathing, this helps already to bring also down your stress levels. So it's a certain way of breathing, and it's getting hold of your emotions and name them, what's going on.
Absolutely. So just as a disclaimer, I'm not trying to influence people to smoke. I'm just saying of
no, it's the breathing.
But it's the breathing, which is funny. Well, not funny. It ties into the exact previous episode, like last week's episode, where I had my guest Mark Devine, who's a former U.S. Navy SEAL, on, and he referred to as his box breathing. So again, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds hold, 5 seconds exhale, right?
Exactly.
And this all ties in together. And this is why I've kind of lined all these shows up in similar times, because we're discussing this month I'm going to be discussing all about the mental game of leadership, basically. So
great.
Works out quite well.
And it combines all the things, because in the end it's your mind, it's your mental attitude, and it's your mind who is acting. Yeah.
Absolutely. So do you have any advice out there for the audience of how they can, one, improve, their thinking abilities and thinking skills along with their decision-making skills? Because I'm sure that's something that, that is never as sharp as what it could possibly be. There's always room for growth and improvement.
Yeah. So let me tell 3 things. One, what I already said. So get a comprehensive feedback from other department leaders and make then a decision based on that. Another one is to think into the future. So create scenarios. What could happen if you decide that way? So make a prognosis of a low estimate, a middle, and very high estimate. So because decisions have consequences. So think about the consequences. That's again critical thinking into the future. You can also come up with the worst case scenario. So if I do that decision, what would be the worst outcome? And then you go backwards and find out what would have caused that outcome. Yeah, I understand. Like, for example, you have this communication system and you establish it everywhere. But now the worst case scenario, nobody, especially in the main department you wanted it, nobody is using it. Yeah, that's the worst case scenario. And now you have to think backward to find out why people are not using it. Have you overseen something? What do you have to consider by even implementing it? That's also very interesting, because with this you create brainstorming in your body, and you like this executive functioning of the brain that's really initiated by such questions. And it's also good to have also an outside view. Then all kinds of board games, something to really initiate your executive functioning is also very important. Like games like chess, card games, very important. Playing an instrument, also very important to initiate your executive functioning.
So Sorry. So basically, make attempts to tap into the creative side of our brain.
Yeah, I would say it's the executive part of your brain where you need focus, attention, planning, yeah, all this, and short-term memory, because short-term memory or working memory is that you're able to hold information for a certain time.
Okay.
And our brain has only a capacity like 7 numbers to keep them in mind. And in the times of not the mobile phones we have nowadays, we had to recall telephone numbers. Yeah. Nowadays, we're not able to do it. We make a screenshot or whatever. Yeah. And we just tap on address and nobody has to recall telephone numbers. But that's something we really trained our working memory. So all these things just to calculate something and not with calculator and everything which creates problem-solving tasks. What I describe, put things into the future, estimate low, middle, and high outcomes of that decision. Worst-case scenarios, planning something, that's all our executive functioning. And that's the slow thinking process.
Okay.
You have to think for a while to solve that problem.
Awesome. No, I definitely am tracking and a better understanding of all this now. I think the final topic I'd like for us to talk about, today is this whole, to me, myth of multitasking. To me, it's a myth. I personally, I don't believe in it. I cannot do literally two things at one time. Like it's physiologically, to me, impossible to do. Yes, I can breathe and grab something and all that. Yeah, okay. But I mean, task-wise, as a leader, I can't be actually doing two things at once. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this from a neuroscience perspective.
Yeah, brain research really showed that you can't do different things at the same time. We have the impression, in our conscious, we think we can do things at the same time, but it's actually not. You have to close a certain task at that moment, like you're listening to music, and at the same time you're writing, but you can't do that really properly at the same time. So if you focus more on writing, you actually in your brain, you slow down the process of listening to the music. And then you focus on something else like writing. Now, again, you listen out of sudden, you're aware, now I'm listening or to the music and I'm writing. But in reality, when the music comes predominant again, you are shifting again to hearing. So you need some space in between, like when you're in a leadership position. You need between tasks at least 10 minutes. Yeah. Finish one thing. Yeah. Otherwise, the task you're doing will really take much longer. I know it from myself. So if I do a certain like content writing or whatever, I often interrupt myself to do certain things and it takes much longer. So it's better to focus a specific time and you have to see how long you can focus. Some people, they can only focus for 50 minutes. Some people, they can focus up to 45 minutes. It depends how your brain works. Focus on one thing, take a time in between, do the breathing, just 5 breaths in and out and switch to the other one.
So would you recommend leaders then sort of like basically scheduling their tasks, i.e., okay, I'm going to work on this for so long, 10-minute break, and then schedule for their next task? Would that fall in line with what you're saying?
Yes. And there's even an app. You can download it. It's brain focus. And there you can say, okay, I'm able to focus now for 20 minutes, for 25 minutes, for whatever you think you can focus on. And then it gives a signal, and then you have a break of 5 minutes. And then you go back to the next task or you continue with your task. And you can do that for 4 times. And after you have finished the 4 times, you can have a longer break. I find it quite useful to have that, because then you really know you're focusing on certain things and you finish them up.
Awesome. So you said that was Brain Focus, the name of the app?
Yes,
okay.
And there are definitely other apps. So the one I have is called Brain Focus.
Awesome. For the audience out there, I'll be sure to link that in the show notes. If you just go to movingforleadership.com/5555, all the show notes are made there, as I have already discussed. So this has been thoroughly interesting for me as someone who has a interest, I would say, in NLP and neuroscience, which has not been really fed yet. I haven't had the opportunity to learn more and more, but it's definitely been an interesting conversation for myself, and I love what you've been talking to myself and the audience about. I got one last question for you before we wrap up the show today, and I asked every guest member of the Moving Forward Leadership podcast this question, and that is to you, Silke. What makes a great leader?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, for me, as I'm coming from the neuroscience side, is someone who is really emotionally resilient, who is able to make more rational decisions, to come to his more slow thinking process, who is connected to the people around him, to know what's really also on the social side going on, and who is able to create a good working environment for people, because that's also very important for oxytocin. People feel safe and committed, and with this you also enable the best in your employees. This, I believe, is also quite crucial, and extra emotionally resilient and doing better decisions. And for me, it's also someone who is able to live his life purpose, who has found a position where he really feels he can give his level best.
Awesome. Definitely love that answer, and could see that type of answer coming for sure. Silke, I thank you again for coming out. At this time, I'd like for you to, how can people reach you? How they can find you? Your resources, what you're all about, and feel free to give yourself what I like to call a shameless plug.
Yes. Okay, you can find me on my website, which is called SilkCelia, and Celia like Charlie.com. You can find me also on LinkedIn. My name is Silke Glaab, and you will definitely find them in the comments on Scott's podcast. And these are the major areas I'm quite active on LinkedIn, and I have a lot of articles and free resources also on my website, SilkCelia.com. There's even a small course on how to be even more successful based on NLP and hypnotherapy.
Awesome. And again, for the audience out there, it's easy for you guys. Just go to movingforleadership.com/5555, and all those links will be in the show notes for you. Silke, again, thank you for having this conversation with me and the audience today. It was tonight for me, this morning for you. It was definitely interesting and a lot to be taken away from here. Speaking of which, for the audience, just stick around and I'll have my key takeaways from my conversation today with Silke, talking about how we can make better decisions through neuroscience. Thank you again. Take care.
Thank you very much, Scott, and sleep well now. And it was also a pleasure for me being on your podcast. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that episode there with Silke. I told you it'd be a little bit different, right, didn't I? And so it was. Anyway, here I am with my key takeaways from today's episode. And the first one, if you've been a long time listener, you probably should see this coming. Emotions versus not emotions in decision making. I'm still sticking to it. you have to try to eliminate those emotions out of there. Once you get emotions away from the decision-making process, then you get a clearer mind, a clearer picture, and make more effective decisions. And I'm sticking to it. And I got backed up by Silke there in that interview. Along something similar, try to widen your decision-making circle. Invite more people in, get other people's opinions, their ideas. You maybe cloud it. Maybe you are emotionally connected to the decision you need to make and you can't necessarily shake it. Or maybe you're biased, right? We all have our biases out there, regardless if they're intentional or not. They're there. So the more opinions and the more people you bring in to help you look at the situation, the ability you will have to potentially make a different decision than if you're doing it solo. Now, the so what and the but to that is, as you expand that circle, the more and more time it's going to take for you to come to your conclusions and make your decisions, right? So you have to balance that. If you need a very quick decision, going a huge circle of people might not be your best option. However, if you have a lot of time, right, then maybe expanding it will be. And then the final thing that I want to hit on with key takeaways today is scheduling your day for your tasks, right? And I do this personally. I use my mornings for my analytical crunching, and I schedule it in my calendar. And then I use my afternoons for more of the meetings, the flow type stuff that don't necessarily take a whole lot of brain power for me. And I've based this off of a book, which is in the Moving for Leadership Resources section, The Power When, because I am a lion. I go hard in the morning, a little tamer in the afternoon, and then I can pound out things in the evening before bed again. And that's the way a lion rolls. So that's how I've scheduled my day for my tasks. So think about that. And if that's something that interests you, it's a really great book, Dr. Bruce, The Power When. Just go to movingforleadership.com/resources, and you'll find that in there. And you can grab a copy and support the webpage and podcast at the exact same time, because it won't cost you anything extra, but I'll get a slight little cut when you buy that book. All right, folks. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this show, this is what you need to do. R squared, S squared, right? R squared, rate and review so that more people out there can learn about the Moving for Leadership podcast, and I can help more people become better leaders. That's all I'm here for. That's the R squared. The S squared, share. Go ahead and share this episode with someone you think may be interested in what the message was today, all about decision making. Maybe it's your boss who maybe they can't make a decision. Or maybe it's a friend of yours who's just getting really into this whole leadership realm and they're not really comfortable in what to do. You know what I mean? So go ahead, share it, and let me know. I'd love to know that you've shared the episode, because I see it on the website all the time, the share numbers going up and up. And then finally, subscribe, because you don't want to miss another episode. And I make it easy for you. Just go to movingforleadership.com/subscribe, and all the various subscription options are there for you. You just need to hit one which works best for you. Whether you're on Android, iOS, if you like the old school RSS feed, it's all there for you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for you for this week. As always, I hope you're doing well, and keep crushing it out there. Okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, remember, keep pushing, keep trying, keep moving forward. Take care now.